Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. Today's video is featuring some new products from Colorado Craft Company. This is a Chris Lauren release, which means the stamps are absolutely adorable. And so I'm showing you here, this is Adventures in the Air and the Greetings banner. I'm going to show you how to mask this card but not color it, and I'll explain why in a minute. The other set, which is the one we're going to concentrate on, is called Never Far Behind. And we're also going to stamp and mask this one as well. These are both one-layer cards. Here what I'm doing is I'm just laying my stamps down so I can get the position for my umbrella. But I made a mistake and I'm leaving it in. I'm a big proponent of being completely transparent. And even when you're a person who, makes one layer scene cards for a living, you can still make mistakes. And so here is the mistake that I made. When I'm stamping down the umbrella, okay, the way the umbrella is drawn is there is a front to the umbrella, but then there is also a back to the umbrella, which means if you want to put characters under the umbrella, which is what I wanted to do, you have to stamp them behind the top layer, but in front of the back layer. So that can be a little bit tricky. I didn't realize it at the time when I was originally doing it. And so I left it in so that you could see why it creates a problem for us. So here I am trimming out the umbrella. I did have to, even though I don't love it, it is what it is. I did have to trim out the handle. I do need that part to be masked so that I can stamp my character's hand there holding the umbrella. But you can see I've cut out the mask for the entirety of the umbrella. And when I go to stamp, that means that my characters are going to look like the umbrella is floating in front of them and they are behind it, not under it. So when we're thinking about, stamping one layer scenes, which I've said this before, whatever you want to see the most of, you have to stamp first. Which in this case, we want to see all of the top of the umbrella, and the characters' heads would be underneath it in order for them to be under the protection of the umbrella. But that back line creates a little bit of I don't want to say a problem because there is a way around it, but you can see here how it looks like our umbrella is very much in the forefront and our characters are behind it. That doesn't make any sense. So here what I've done is I have the top portion of the umbrella. This is the umbrella stamp in its entirety minus the handle. I'm going to trim out the back of it. Okay. So then I'm going to lay down the top piece and I'm going to lay down, now we just cut this, so it should fit like a puzzle piece. It'll just snug up against it. And then I'm going to remove the top portion. So basically when I stamp it, and I did get, you're going to see it kind of like cuts out. I did get like right on top of this umbrella to make sure my lines were matched up. I'm going to pick up the stamp. I'm going to leave that mask in place for the back. This is going to allow me to stamp the top of the umbrella and the handle without stamping that middle section. So then when I go in and remove it, that middle section will be gone. Now, so is that portion of the handle, but that's okay. Now I can go in and put in these masks, the top of the umbrella and then the handle, stamp my characters, which will now be behind this front portion, then go back in with the masking and stamp that back portion of the umbrella. So sometimes when we want to do one layer scenes, we do have to think about them a little bit differently. They can be a little bit more complex than just, stamp all of what you want to see first. That is true, but sometimes the stamp makes it a little tricky for you. Don't be afraid to cut your masks apart. Don't be afraid to position them in a way that is going to work best for you. And in some cases, you might have to learn the hard way like I did here where I stamped it wrong and then, but I'm not going to waste my paper. I just flipped it over, by the way. So then I can stamp my little characters. Now I do have an ear kind of like sticking out for each little squirrel, but that's okay because they're not going to both fit under there with the size of the umbrella. Now I will remove the umbrella masking because I'm just going to stamp over the same one. And again, I'm going to lean over it and make sure everything lines up perfectly. But this time I am going to have to mask my character's ears. That's the only part that it covered. If I was doing ink blending in the background, I would cover them in their entirety. But we're going to be doing a Copic marker technique. Does this seem like a lot of work for just that one little back line? Yeah, it does. And if you're comfortable, you could just fill it in yourself with a pen. So now this one, this is the Adventure in the Air, and they actually have another, I don't remember what the other one is, but there's another plane set. They're adorable, and there's plenty of people who with this release worked with both of the planes, and they look really cute because they face opposite directions. So if you have somebody in your family who is a pilot, looking at you, Jen Timko, or if you have somebody in your life who, maybe is a little boy who loves airplanes or a little girl that loves airplanes, these are totally adorable. And in this case, I'm making a teacher card because we're getting to the end of the year, and this one is a bit more, gender neutral. And Nathan's teacher is a male. So I didn't, and I know some people are like, oh, I give boys flowers all the time. And that's totally fine. I typically do not. But I guess that just maybe has to do with the men in my life. I have no idea. So anyway, we're going to stamp the airplane and then mask that. And then that's the only masking that I have to do because both of my stamps, my squirrel pilot here, and then as well as my banner will be stamped, right over that plane, and the masking will protect it so that it is the majority of what we see is the plane in its entirety. For this background, I did a very kind of generic tree line. I also did a very kind of simple blue sky. The reason that I chose not to include this one in the video is because the other technique that we're doing, which I really wanted to concentrate on, is a little bit more involved. And I already have a video on how I did this similar background. So I will show you the card here. There are still photos over on the blog, which is also where the blog hop is, where you can win and enter for giveaways. I think that's open until like May 5th. So I'll link that below in the YouTube description. But what we're going to do is we're going to create some rain. And I was a little bit nervous because I don't have a lot of practice with this. But even though I don't have a lot of practice with it, it's really pretty easy to create this kind of rain look. And I love the way that it came out. So I'm using my Pixie masking tape to 1 mask where my horizon line is going to be and 2 mask where my rainbow is going to be. So forgive me that we're a little bit off the screen here. I'm going to realize it in a minute and I'll scoot it down. But basically, I wanted my rainbow to go at a diagonal across the sky. And so consequently, I have to create my sky and my raindrops at that same kind of angle. I guess I didn't have to, but it was easier to. And sometimes, when you're doing more complicated scenes like this, it's okay to take a shortcut. I feel fine about it. So I'm starting with some brighter blues on the bottom. It's a B01 and a B00. I'm going to continue those lighter colors over on the other side of the rainbow. The idea I was going for was kind of like darker storm clouds up in the left-hand corner, and then on the other side of the rainbow, like a lighter blue. It's all going to have rain, but it will look as if the storm is kind of passing. That's the general idea. In order to kind of blend it out into a lighter white, I am using a B00, which is a very, very light blue. And then we're going to start incorporating some darker, maybe more desaturated colors. And all that means is that they have more gray in them. So more desaturated colors over on the stormy side. Something that I do that may be helpful for you is anytime I'm scared of something, so like I'm scared it's not going to work out, I start with my lightest colors, because they're the easiest to cover up. So I started with a B91. I then went to a B34, which is really like a mid-tone desaturated blue. And then I'm going to get into like my C5, which is a darker, and then my C3. And you can see I'm not over blending this because those lines, that streakiness, that is going to give us some directionality for our actual rain. So as I'm getting more comfortable, I'm incorporating, it's the same colors, I'm just adding layers of them. And I am being careful, I am blending them, but not overly so. I do want to keep that streaky look because that is typically what we see. When clear rain is falling outside your window, you can still see the rain. And you typically see it in whatever pattern it's falling. You know, if you got a crazy windstorm and it's blowing diagonal, you can see it. So I wanted to make sure to leave those streaks in. I am going to bring over that B91 into the other side, but just a little bit, just so that it looks like these would blend together if we didn't have the rainbow in the middle. And then I will carry those lighter blues, those brighter blues, all the way down into that bottom right-hand corner. And then I'm going to go ahead and remove this so that I can do my rainbow. I'm going to leave the bottom one down. That is acting as a mask for me, as a guide for where to stop my rainbow. Also, it's really hard to color around objects. Like, it's really hard to color around images and have them be a fluid stroke. So if you're like me, I tell people, like, I'm a sloppy colorist, and they're always like, oh no, your coloring so pretty. That I don't mean my coloring isn't pretty. I think that it is. There's people who are better than me, but that doesn't mean that mine's not pretty, just like yours is pretty. But what I mean is I struggle with keeping it in the lines. And so that's what the colorless blender is for. You can go over your, anywhere that you got color that you don't want. Obviously, it's easier to remove lighter colors. Red is by far the most challenging, or, the reddish pink tones. But just, you want to do that in layers as well. So you go in, push your color back out to where you want it to be, and you have to give it time to dry in between. If you just keep adding colorless blender over it with no dry time, it starts to become very messy and you get lots of bleeds kind of everywhere. You don't want that. So go in, push the color, let it dry, go back, push the color, and then typically as many times as you need. Now, I didn't have to completely remove the color because I know the colors I'm going over top of it with are going to be darker. So once I had it light enough that I knew I could cover it, I just moved on to the rainbow. For the rainbow, I chose colors. If you've watched my videos before, you know that I tell you with Copic markers specifically, that if you look at the last number, that's where your colors are going to blend together. So I used an R35 and a YR04. 4 and 5 are close to each other. That's going to work just fine. Same thing with the the B02. I used a V04 and a YG03. So you have that 2, 3, 4 very close to each other. They're going to blend just fine. I'm not overly blending them, by the way. I'm just barely overlapping them. The only exception to that I found is the yellow. A Y02 is too light to blend with some of these brighter colors. It ends up kind of washing them out. So I do go for a Y08. 8 is not close to 3 or 4, but in this case, it does work for the most part. And I didn't do any further shading. I just laid down the color as is. Here is where I maybe wish that I had paid a little bit better attention. I did not want my sky and my rainbow to just go directly into my ground. I wanted there to be like some trees or some bushes or something kind of in the background, but I didn't allot for them. And so here's that trick again of me using the lighter color because I'm scared and I don't know if it's going to work. So I went in with a YG03, which is the same green that you see in the rainbow, to kind of just put in some very generic kind of like shrub shapes. And then once I'm sure I've got the shape well, I'm going to go in with a lot darker green that I know will cover up my rainbow colors. And obviously that blue is very light in the sky on the right-hand side, so no issues covering that up. So I went in with a G29. And then I just kind of outlined the shapes, added a little bit of shading to like kind of the left and right hand sides, maybe a little bit more to the bottom. And then I'm going to go in and blend that out with a G19 so that it is a little bit brighter. It doesn't feel just like this heavy dark green brush at the back. And I think that worked pretty well. And it also gave me, a more interesting kind of scene, because we changed it up. But the rainbow looks better hidden behind some shrubbery versus just meeting a direct, straight horizontal line. For the ground that they're standing on, I opted to use the E50s family. I knew I wanted them to kind of be standing in a puddle, so I'm leaving that area pretty light for the first go round because, again, I don't I'm not sure. I'm not 100% confident in what I am doing. So I'm starting with my lightest color. I colored like this for years and years. So if it's something that you need to do, there's no shame in it. I always started with my lightest color because then if I messed up the shadows, I didn't have a problem covering them up and correcting it. But as I've gotten, more comfortable with my coloring and more confident in where I'm putting my shadows, I have switched to doing the darkest color first, just because it creates less work. The blending is still, I think, comparable. So in order to create some texture along my little trail that my squirrels are walking on, I did do a couple of little dots of my darkest color, which is a E59, and then the midtone, my dark midtone, which is an E57. And then I'm kind of going to blend everything out with the E55 and then use the E53 to really kind of bring it into where my little puddle is going to be. You don't want no brown there because then it's going to look very disjointed when you put your puddle in, but just a little, like a lighter color. I also decided to put some grasses in. So we have like the shrubs behind us, the trail they're walking on, and then some kind of brighter grasses in the front. And I'm using YGs for that just so that there is a little bit of color interest created between the dark of the shrubs and the light of the grass. And for this, I have another video on this as well if you're interested in seeing the grass process a little bit more in depth. But I'm just using 3 colors for this, putting down a little bit of the darker color, more of the mid-tone, and then the most of my lightest color. You don't have to go back in with your lightest color to do the flicks, the second time around after your mid-tone if you don't want it to be as blended, but I did want mine to be a bit more blended. I felt like my blades of grass were a little bit jarring. Also, note to self, make sure, because you want this scene to look like it continues, that you're kind of pulling the some of those little flicks off from the edge of the page. I chose to color my squirrel in the little raincoat, isn't he adorable, with the same browns that I use the ground for. This is also the same color combination I used for my pilot on the other card. So just so you could kind of see the both of them. Really the only part you're missing out on is the coloring of the plane. And if it's something that you guys are really interested in, I'm 100% open to doing another card with those stamps because they're adorable. And there's like another little bunny pilot in that one. Super cute. Very adorable. But anyway, so now that we're 20 minutes into this video, let's talk about the Blog Hop real quick. So I believe that's open until May 5th. They are doing a giveaway for one comment along the step, but then they are also doing a giveaway for somebody who shops through the affiliate links to receive the whole bundle. In addition to that, it is free shipping days today and tomorrow. So if you really love it and you're like, I'm going to buy it anyway, if not mine, somebody else's, support the creators that you love, please shop through their affiliate links so you can be entered to win. And then also make sure that you are, getting your free shipping. I will post the blog link below if you're watching on YouTube, so at least you have a free entry if you just hop along and leave some comments along the way. So there is that business taken care of. What have we been doing? What have we been doing? I don't even really know. We did have, what do we have going on? I felt like my whole week was so busy with just things, and they're not like bad things. They were just like things. So I had been saying for a while that I wanted to I needed a pedicure, which was true. I totally did need a pedicure. I hadn't had one in a long time. And so my mom kind of like bullied me into it. She gets her nails done at the same place. And she called me and she was like, hey, I'm here. I know you've been saying that you were going to get a pedicure. This is what they have available. And so I ended up, through her, I shouldn't say bullying, through her encouragement, I ended up booking an appointment. And originally I was booking the appointment on a day that my mom was going to watch Caitlin while my husband worked overtime. But as it turned out, my mom ended up getting sick, and she is still sick. So if you are if you are of the praying type, if you could send up some extra prayers for my mama to start feeling better, I would greatly appreciate that. She does, I mean, well, she's my mom, first and foremost, before she does anything. I love her because she's my mother. But she does so much for us, and I firmly believe in the power of prayer, and so we would appreciate your prayers and well wishes. But anywho, so she ended up getting sick. So I called my husband and I was like, hey, I can move my appointment. And he was like, no. I was only going to stay for like an hour or two tonight anyway. Like, I'll just come home. So I ended up being able to make it to my pedicure appointment. And then when I got home, my little jelly bean was like, where were you? You know, because 2-year-olds are nosy. And I was like, Mommy wouldn't get her toes done. And she was like, Kaylin wants her toes painted. So she was eating dinner at the time that I came home, and my husband told her, like, if you eat your dinner real good, then Daddy will paint your toes. And I thought, well, that's a lofty promise, but let's see how that goes. So then after dinner, I picked it purposely, okay? I picked a very light pink and a very light purple, because I didn't know if she would let one of us paint them or if she would want to do it herself. And so... So sure enough, she let me, I had her pick a color. She picked purple. I painted them. And then she was like, now pink. So she has pinkish purple toes. But she originally was like purple, and Eric was like, I'll do it. I told her I would paint them. And I was like, you're going to paint her toes? So he did. He's such a good dad. But so he painted her toes, and then she had me paint them pink over top of the purple. So that's how she ended up with pinkish purple toes. And then she was like, I paint your toes. And I was like, Mommy just got her toes painted. So then she looks at Daddy and says, I paint your toes. And to his credit, that man whipped off his sock, and she painted his toes purple, and then she wanted to put a clear coat over it. But really, she did not even paint his toenails. When I say she painted his toes, I mean she painted his toes. His whole toe, in between his toe, like, girlfriend painted all of it. All of the toe there was to paint. But she enjoyed herself quite a bit. Now, thankfully for him, she decided she was done painting it before she moved on to the pink. So he just has the very light purple on his toes, but it was very adorable. So, yeah, she's been showing everybody her little painted toenails, which are very, very cute, by the way. Like, obviously, I had a son before I had a daughter, so I didn't get painted toenails or painted fingernails, but now I do, and they are exceptionally cute. So, back to the coloring. So, we've done his little raincoat. You know, it's very Georgie-esque, if you will. If you're a King fan, you'll get that reference. But I was trying to pick colors. We obviously have a full rainbow. I have green grass. I have a blue sky. So competitors for my coat were, my coat or my umbrella, I should say, were either yellow, red, or purple, because the other, or orange. I always forget about orange. But because the other ones are already represented in the scene, so in order to keep it more cohesive, it makes sense to pick colors that are already there. So I wanted to do the umbrella red. I thought that that would kind of pop nicely off the blue background. Orange also would have been a good pick. But so I chose to do red, and the yellow coat seemed to go best with that. I don't really love a purple and a red together. I know that's just me. But so then I did their accessories, their little boots, and then on the raincoat, the buttons and the pockets red to match my little umbrella. For the umbrella, I'm doing more of that flicking style of shading, and this is to create a more round appearance for the umbrella. So I'm flicking from the top where it's joined down, and then flicking from the bottom up. So that's going to create a highlight along the middle section of my umbrella, which is going to make it look like it is more round, like it's a 360 object instead of being a flat umbrella. For that very little line of back umbrella that we went to a lot of work to make sure it was there, I just did the two darkest colors. There was really it's not a lot of real estate. I didn't really need to do a lot of shading there. But these little squirrels are so cute. And like, I had the squirrel pilot as well. and they're so stinking cute. So anyway, that is the coloring of the umbrella. Now we are going to move into coloring the puddle and the rain. So for the puddle, I'm using these same blues that you saw me use in the sky. And again, I'm kind of starting with the lighter colors. I'm doing a little bit of shadow underneath their feet, but then also I'm going to create these kind of round lines, these roundish lines that would make the water look like it was rippling out as, you know, our little characters were maybe stepping into it or the raindrops were hitting it. And it's just going to give it a more puddle-like appearance. I am leaving a little bit of a highlight in between the two rings so that they stay distinct from each other. But I'm also blending it out into that E53. And now we're onto the rain. I was very nervous. My whole scene at this point was really super cute. But the rain really makes it. It like takes it to the next level. So in order to create the rain, you want your colorless blender. And basically what I did was, it's not overly saturated, but it's not dry. You do need to have ink in the colorless blender. But I kind of used it at an angle and I set it down on the paper and then very quickly kind of pulled it off. So it creates a more round dot at the beginning and then pulls off into kind of that teardrop shape. Now with this, you do want to go over any areas that the rain would be hitting. So some of my droplets go all the way to the ground and some of my droplets go right over my little animals. Something to be concerned about when you're doing this, like when you're doing, maybe if you have a red umbrella like I do, when you're pulling it, you just want to make sure that you're not picking up any pigment. And if you are, you want to kind of just like scribble it off on a scrap piece of paper so that you don't go to do a raindrop in your blue sky and drag that red ink along with you. If any of your raindrops seem to be a little paler than you would like, you can go in and put in, you know, a little bit of kind of like a little wiggle of a colorless blender to create your raindrop. And this by itself creates that rain look and looks amazing. I was very happy with the way that it came out. But we're really going to kind of amp up the look of the rain. And we're going to do that with the white gel pen. So I'm adding some shimmer here because I like shimmer, but also to like look like wet. And I'm doing that along the little puddle, along my umbrella, and then, you know, the little accessories. For the white gel pen, I'm using a number 10 that gives me, I don't have any issues with it clogging, but I'm not pressing down all the way. I'm letting it kind of skip as I pull it along the trail of the raindrop. The part that you want to have the most highlight is going to be the end. So I'm doing kind of like a little C shape and then dragging the line. Where it's hitting something, like down on the ground or on the umbrella, I sometimes will do like a little line to the left or the right of it to create like the little splash look. And you don't have to put a highlight on every single one of your raindrops. You can, but you don't have to. You can also not do the little C shape and just do kind of like a skippy little line of the white gel pen, which will also help create the look of rain. I use the white gel pen to add a highlight to their noses and then onto their little accessories as well. And I'm just, you know, kind of going back and forth and looking and seeing maybe where I need to add some more. Here's those little lines to the side that I was telling you about. And that just makes it look like it's splashing. In addition to this, I also went in, once I had all of my raindrops like that I knew I was going to highlight, I went back in with that clear glitter pen and highlighted them with that as well. And I was really happy with the way that it came out. You obviously don't need to do anything this elaborate to get a rain scene. You could certainly start with a much simpler scene where maybe you're not even masking anything, but I do think that the rain adds something to it. The sentiment, very fitting, is don't fear the storm, for the rainbow is never far behind. Loved that, and I just stamped it down, and then that completed the card. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I always appreciate your time. Please make sure that you hop over to the blog so that you can enter to win, and I will catch you guys on the next video. Bye.